Hallelujah. Let Lord Jesus Christ shine forth. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us. Welcome to another live stream with TCCI Ministries. And I have Robert Spencer all the way from America. How are you doing, Robert?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Hatun?
By God's grace, I am good. Thank you.
Very
What's
good.
happening over there? America has been on the news last couple of days.
I don't know. Something about an election. I'm not really sure. Uh, I don't pay any attention to such matters.
Okay.
Actually,
Well,
I was seeing that people were shaving their heads because they're so upset about the election. So I was going to try to find a wig, a big mop of hair to wear to give the opposite effect. But unfortunately, I was not able to locate one before this show today. So sorry
well,
about that.
next time.
Yes.
Yeah, people need to be reminded that whatever happens, how disappointed or how joyful we are, princesses, queens will come and go, governments will come and go, yet Lord of Lords, King of Kings, Lord Jesus Christ is always in his throne.
Yes.
While we are talking about the thrones, we've been looking at the story of cow in the Quran.
Which is not a story about a cow.
But there are few verses in it talking about the color of the cow. That doesn't count.
Indeed. Well, that's actually why it's called the cow. But I'm just repeating from shows weeks and weeks ago that the chapters of the Quran have no connection to the meaning at all. They're just randomly taken from something in the chapter, for the most part.
Well, it
And
is not
so,
no one's fault if Allah didn't give the name of the chapters.
indeed, somebody else had to do it. You mean this is not all the word of Allah? Yikes.
Yeah, and people kind of, word of Allah needs some clarification, so people need to make sense of the chapters. Therefore, let me put names on it, and
Yes.
that's normal. That's normal.
And the names are random and have no connection to the chapter's meaning because the chapters don't have any single meaning. The chapters, as we have abundantly illustrated in going through the cow so far, the chapters have no unity, no connection. They ramble from subject to subject without any warning or explanation. And the cow is the principal example of that.
Some people are like very funny. Some people are
Yeah.
very funny. It's good to have you people in the chat. So we are going to continue to talk about the Quran, and we are going through verse by verse. We are in chapter 2. We left in verse 204. By God's grace, by end of the year, we will probably finish chapter 2 and then pick up from chapter 4. So AM will be, we cover all 114 chapters before we get to the bosom of the Father. That's the plan.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's our plan. We don't know what God have in the store for us.
Of course, the last show, if we get there, it's not going to be all about 114. There's nothing to say. I mean, you can finish saying everything in 5 minutes. And so we could have a show about maybe the last 10 surahs together, something like that. So it'll go quicker as we go. But anyway, we're still stuck in the cow here.
If you want, I can make last show only about one chapter, because all we need to do is like, oh, Arabic word has different meaning, and then go through each word what Arabic word means. Remember those magical languages of Arabic?
Yes, it all means give the unbelievers a hug and treat them nicely in the
Yeah.
Arabic. It's somehow
Yeah.
they can't translate that properly into English, where it's kill them wherever you find them. I don't know why they can't get it right.
Okay, so the way we've been kind of going through this, I read a bit and then you comment on it and then we take it off from that. And those of you who are joining us in the chat, if you've got any questions or comments on it, please put @ in front of DCCI Ministries, and then I'll bring your questions in the to attention of Robert Spencer, and then we can deal with them. So Surah 2 verse 204. End of mankind, there is he who is conversation about a life of this world pleases you, and he calls Allah to witness about that is in his what is in his heart. Yet he is the most hostile of opponent. And when he turns away, his efforts in the land is to spread corruption in it and to destroy the crops and the cattle, and Allah does not love corruption. And when it is said to him, be mindful of your duty to Allah, pride takes him to sin. Jannah is enough for him, and an evil bed. And of mankind is the one who would sell himself, seeking the pleasure of Allah, and Allah has compassion on his slaves.
Okay, just one minute here. This fellow they're talking about in 204 to 206, he is somebody whose conversation about the life of this world pleases you. That's the first red flag that this is an evil person by the Quran's lights, that he's not a good person because he values this life over the next. Like the jihadis like to say, we love death more than you love life. But this fellow, he talks to you about the life of this world, and it's tempting. He pleases you, and so he's bad. So the Quran in the first place is telling you that you have to not love this world, you have to hate it. And that, of course, is something similar to Christian theology, but it's a completely different spirit, because when the Muslims say we love death more than you love life, they mean that they don't care if they're going to be killed while they're killing you, because they will be rewarded in paradise. They don't love death because they want to be in the presence of God, or they even have that concept of the presence of God as being the summit of all joy. And so not only do they not have this, but they don't have the idea of loving life in the proper sense, in the Christian sense, not of being attached to sin or being attached to the passing things that you can't take with you, but loving life as loving the creation of God, as being a sign of the beauty and the wonder of God, and of the world as being his handiwork. There's nothing like that in Islam. But also, the main thing I wanted to say about this is that when it says his conversation about the life of this world pleases you, there's an ominous edge to this also. And that goes to chapter 8 in verses 67 and following, where it says it's not fitting to take captives until you've made destruction in the land. And there's a hadith that claims that this is about a dispute between, I believe it was Umar and Uthman, but it doesn't matter who it was between. They were arguing about whether they should take hostages or kill their captives. And the people who were arguing that they should be kept alive, was it? I don't want to get this wrong. Do you remember what I'm talking about? That they are upbraided in the hadith by Muhammad because they want the life of this world. They want to have possessions and the spoils that would come from ransoming the hostages instead of just killing them, because they value this world over the next. And that's where you see the real evil edge of the idea of not loving this world as it is in the Quran.
But isn't it do I remember correctly, Allah put mankind into this world for the test? Yes. And you would expect people to perform well in their test. Yet Allah is in a sense saying, well, if you love this world more than next world, then you are in trouble.
Yes. And the thing is that, you see, what I'm trying to say about this is that the love of this world extends to the idea of taking a hostage and ransoming the hostage instead of killing the hostage. That shows that you love this world too much, because you just want to get the stuff you're going to get from ransoming the hostage instead of killing the hostage, which is what Allah wants. So it's really kind of, frankly, evil in terms of loving, killing, and death.
And you link that with the Surah 8, verse 67, correct?
Yes, 867 says, let me go over there.
I can read it. It
Yeah.
is not any of the prophet who have captives until he has made slaughter in the land. You desire the lure of this world, and Allah desires hereafter, and Allah is mighty and wise.
Now,
So
see,
that's
there it is. It's right there. It is not for any prophet to have captives until he has made slaughter in the land. So they wanted to have captives so they could profit from them. And Allah is saying, no, you should just kill them all. You desire the lure of this world. You want to just get rich. Whereas what you really should do is just love killing, because that's what Allah wants. It's so evil. It's astonishing. And people don't realize these things. They read these things, and the Quran is so bereft of context and explanation that most people miss these things when they read them.
End of verse 205 finishes as Allah does not love corruption. Would you be able to kind of comment on it? What is corruption?
Corruption is really anything that is against Islam or against Allah. That's how the Islamic Republic of Iran uses it today. Spreading corruption in the land is an offense, a criminal offense in the Islamic Republic of Iran. You can get arrested and imprisoned and even executed for it, but it's really anything they want it to be. That's the beauty of it, that it's elastic. And so the corruption in the land in chapter 5, verse 33, of course, is punished by having your hand and foot amputated on opposite sides, or be killed or crucified. And so this is a very serious offense for which there is very serious punishment. And yet it's quite vague. It's connected in chapter 5 with making war against Allah and his messenger, but that's not really any less vague. A lot of people would say you and I are doing that by having this discussion in which we are critical of the Quran, but we're just telling the truth about the Quran. So is that making war against Allah and his messenger? And Allah and his messenger don't exist. So can we really make war against them at all? And so the questions multiply.
I don't know where you stand, but I don't want God, who kind of describes himself as vampire, bloodthirsty God, to love me at all. So I don't need that.
Well, there you go.
So, and all I am doing is reading his words. So,
Yes.
verse 208. O you who believe, enter Islam in full and do not follow the footsteps of Satan. Indeed, he is an open enemy to you. And if you turn away after the clear proof have come to you, then know that Allah is mighty wise. Are they waiting for anything else than Allah coming to them in the shadow of the clouds with the angels? Then the case would be already judged. All cases go back to Allah.
Now this is funny. Did you notice that resonance? That the Son of Man will come in the clouds. This is something that the Lord says in the Gospels. And I think this is a resonance of it, because there really isn't anything in Islamic theology that depicts Allah coming in the shadows of the clouds with the angels. Allah is on his throne and stays there. And that's basically it. So what are they talking about? What is this? This is something that did not make its way into Islamic theology, and seems to me to be a resonance of the Gospels.
But we've got Islamic tradition talks about time to time Allah moves around, like Allah comes to the lower heaven to hear the people's prayer, all those kind of things. And Allah simply in here, or author of the Quran, simply steals the word from the Gospel of Mark. Shame, such a shame. Ask the children of Israel how many clear signs we gave them. He who alters the favor of Allah after it has come to him, indeed, Allah is severe in punishment. The life of the world is beautiful for those who disbelieve. They make a joke of the believers. But those who keep their duty to Allah will be above them on the day of resurrection. Allah gives without limit to those whom he wills. Mankind was one community, and Allah sent prophets as bearer of good news and as a warners, and revealed with them the book with the truth, that it might be judged among mankind concerning the things they disagree about. And only those to whom it is given disagreed about it. After clear proof had come to them, through hatred one of another, and Allah by His will guided those who believe to the truth of what they disagreed about. Allah guides those whom He wills to the straight path.
Okay, notice that the children of Israel are brought up again. And what do they have to do with what's being discussed? Nothing whatsoever. And so you have the people who are spreading corruption in the land, and suddenly we hear about the children of Israel. And that, of course, is very much like 532, which says we warned the children of Israel that if they took the life of one person, it would be like taking the life of the whole world. You know, the verse of the Quran that every non-Muslim politician knows. And 533 then says when they spread corruption in the land, you should kill or crucify them, and so on, as we just discussed. So here again, you have the link. It's not as direct, but it's unmistakable between those who are spreading corruption and the Jews. And of course, the anti-Semitism is very deep in the Quran, much deeper than most people realize.
And we get to see the applications of that in Europe right now, where kind of certain religions group, these religion of pieces, are hunting down people. There is a comment, if you can comment on it. Quran is very clear to be merciful towards non-Muslims.
Where? Give us chapter and verse, please, and we'll look at it right now.
Yes, please.
Come on, Aga. Let's see it. Bring your proof if you be truthful.
We will keep eye on. I'll keep eye on that, and then we get the reference for that.
Yeah.
Or do you think that you will enter paradise while there has not yet come upon you anything like what come to those who passed before you? Affliction and adversity befell them. They were shaken as with earthquake until the messenger and those who believe along with him said, when does Allah's help come? Now, indeed, Allah's help is near. They ask you what they should spend. Say, what you spend for good to parents and near relatives and orphans and needy and the wayfarer. And whatever good you do, indeed, Allah is aware of it.
Okay, one thing about this, notice that it says they ask you what they should spend. And so they ask you what they should spend is one of the, I have to say, I wrote this book, Muhammad, A Critical Biography, and an earlier one, Did Muhammad Exist? Muhammad, A Critical Biography, goes through the traditions about Muhammad in the hadiths and shows all their contradictions and how the story of Muhammad is clearly just fables and not historical fact. But in any case, the biggest argument against that, I will argue against it now and say Muhammad really existed. And the biggest argument for that is right here. This is one of them in 2:215, when it says they ask you what they should spend. That, in other words, the prophet or the messenger is being talked to by his followers, and they're asking him questions. And Allah is right there with the answer and says, tell them this, say what you spend for good to parents and so on. So that being the case, it seems clear that this is a false prophet who is claiming that Allah is speaking to him, getting questions from his audience, and then giving the answer that he's making up, of course, out of his own head, but representing as the words of Allah. And the Quran is full of this, where Allah tells the messenger to say this or say that when they're asking this or that. And 5:101, chapter 5, verse 101, actually says that if you ask a question while the Quran is being revealed, you'll get the answer, which is a nice trick, except we don't live in the time that this happened. But of course, the answer to this from the standpoint of history is that this could have been any other false prophet, and that there's no mention of Muhammad or his life. There's 4 mentions of Muhammad's name, but nothing about his life in the Quran. And so it's likely that this was something that was the writings of somebody claiming to be a prophet that was incorporated into this whole Muhammad myth. But anyway, that's what we have there, that Muhammad or somebody is getting asked questions and the answer is being supplied right away.
While this is happening in Surah 2, there is a verse, people are coming to Muhammad and asking about the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. And then Muhammad is waiting, and revelation is not coming.
Yep.
Anyway.
Our friend answered. He gave us a verse. So can you put that up?
Yes. So Surah 2, verse 190.
Okay, and let's remember, what did he say before? Do you have that ready at hand?
Of course.
Show
Quran is very
merciful
towards non-Muslims.
Okay, so he thinks this is merciful to non-Muslims. Fight for the sake of Allah against those who fight against you, but do not transgress. Indeed, Allah does not love transgressors. So apparently that's merciful, that you're only fighting in defense. But he then says to read on 190 to 193. And so in 193, it says, and fight until persecution is no more and religion is for Allah. Hatun, is your religion for Allah? Is my religion for Allah?
Nope.
So, are we fighting the Muslims and attacking them?
I am not, but I know they are after people.
That's correct. And so we're just minding our own business. We may not like the Quran or Islam, but we're not fighting Muslims. We're not attacking. We're not going to war. And yet the Quran tells Muslims in this passage that this clown thinks is merciful to non-Muslims. It tells Muslims to fight against non-Muslims who are just minding their own business and living their lives, but their religion is not for Allah. And so the Quran tells you to fight them. That's not mercy.
So he didn't only brought up Surah 2, verse 190. He also brings up this very merciful chapter called chapter 9, verse 3 to 7. It is so merciful. There is not even like the phrase Allah is all merciful. All that thing is like Bismillah is not at the beginning of that.
Yes.
Surah. Because it's so merciful. But yes, Mr. Muslim thinks this is how Quran is very clear to be the merciful towards non-Muslims. Would you be able to unpack Surah 9, verse 3 to 7 for us?
Sure. It says, and a proclamation from Allah and his messenger to all men on the day of the Hajj, that Allah is free from obligation to the idolaters and his messenger. So if you repent, it will be better for you. So what does that mean? Allah is free from obligation. It means that the Muslims had made agreements with the non-Muslims, and now he's breaking them. And he's saying, I'm free from any obligation to you. So we made these agreements, but they're torn up now. Yeah. And so that's very merciful. So if you repent, it would be better for you. But if you refuse, then know that you cannot escape Allah. Okay, so the unrepentant are in trouble. I'll give news of a painful doom to those who disbelieve, except for those of the idolaters with whom you have a treaty, and who have not been deficient toward you, nor have supported anyone against you. Fulfill their treaty to them until their term. Indeed, Allah loves those who keep their duty. Then, when the sacred months have passed, kill the idolaters wherever you find them, and take them and besiege them, and prepare for them every ambush. But if they repent and establish prayer and give alms, then leave their way free. So, you have mercy in verse 4, that you painful doom to those who disbelieve, except those you have a treaty with. Keep the treaty. But the treaty is obviously, that's not how it ends. See, this guy is lying, because he says 2:193 ends fight until oppression is no more. That's a total lie. It says fight until oppression is no more and religion is for Allah. So fighting until oppression is no more, as we discussed at the time, is defensive. But fighting until religion is for Allah, that's open-ended war against anybody whose religion is not for Allah. So anyway, he keeps throwing different things out. He's trying to take up the whole thing, the whole show. We're not going to play with him after this, okay? I'm going to finish verses 3 to 7, and then he's doesn't have any more time, because this is another thing Islamic apologists try to do. They throw 20 things at you, and you can only answer 15, and then they claim victory because you run out of time. So he's not going to get that here. Anyway, you see, you make the treaty, but then when the treaty's over, you kill them wherever you find them. So obviously the treaty is temporary, not permanent. So that's one thing. But then it goes on. But if they repent and establish prayer and give alms, then leave their way free. Indeed, Allah is forgiving, merciful. So they repent, establish prayer, and give alms. So that means they become Muslim. They're doing the 5 pillars of Islam. The prayer, the giving alms, and so on. And if any one of the idolaters seeks your protection, then protect him, so that he may hear the word of Allah, and afterward bring him to his place of safety. That is because they are a people who do not know. How can there be a treaty with Allah and with his messenger for the idolaters, except for those with whom you made a treaty at the sacred mosque? As long as they are true to you, be true to them. Indeed, Allah loves those who keep their duty. But we already know that the treaty is temporary, because verse 4 says that you keep the treaty, but then when the treaty is over, when the sacred months have passed as well, you kill them wherever you find them. Then the killing begins, because the warfare is till religion is all for Allah. It doesn't end if you make a treaty. And this is very clear from Islamic theology, which stipulates that you can only make a treaty with non-Muslims for a period of 10 years while you're weak. And then you break it when you're strong enough. But you don't make a permanent peace with them, because you have to fight to work to Islamize the whole world. And so there's temporary treaties, but nothing permanent. And this is an interpretation of Islam. This doesn't come from me. This comes from Ibn Hisham, who says that the first biographer of Muhammad, going back to Ibn Ishaq, who says that there were 3 stages in the development of the Quran on warfare, tolerance, and then defensive war, and then offensive war. And there are numerous Islamic theologians who affirm that throughout history up to our own day. And so this clown is just coming in and being actively deceptive, banking on non-Muslims not knowing the ins and outs of the Quran and Islamic law. But he has met his match here with Hatun.
Just a quick help to Mr. Muslim. I think when he states, sorry, I don't want to keep their side, but I think there is a clarification needs to be done here. When he says Quran is very clear to be the merciful towards non-Muslims, I don't think he's talking about the mercy the way we understand. So I think he's talking about Islamic way of mercy, that like they're gonna make you suffer, and then murder you, and then it's done. So that's the sign of mercy.
Yes,
I think
that Allah's mercy is being, this is actually something that the Study Quran says, which is a ludicrous, ridiculous book, but it's very popular. And it says for chapter 48, verse 29, Muhammad is the apostle of Allah. Those who follow him are ruthless to unbelievers, merciful to one another. It says that the ruthlessness is the harshness that you're supposed to give to the unbelievers so they become Muslim. And so it's actually a kind of mercy.
Yeah.
And so there you are.
That's how they sell. Just a quick comment on someone. Where is that message? Sorry for this distraction. I would like to visit Speaker's Corner. I find a hotel near the park, and I did find a hotel close to the park. So someone is kind of is traveling to Speaker's Corner. I just want to express that it's good that you find hotel close to the park, but those hotels are have lots of Muslims employers as well as guests, plus lots of illegal immigrants in that area. Just be careful, since you don't want to be close to them. That's what I'm assuming. So they're everywhere right now. You can't even wear the shirt you want to wear in these hotels. Just be careful. I'll pick up from Surah 2, verse 116. Warfare is
216.
Yes, 216. Warfare is commanded for you, even though it is odious for you. But it may happen that you hate something that is good for you, and it may happen that you love something that is bad for you. Allah knows, you do not know.
So warfare's commanded for you. You gotta, they're telling you, no, it's just defensive. Well, defensive warfare, why do you need a revelation to tell you that you should defend yourself? That's a universal human tendency to defend your home, your family, your people. Every people on earth has done that. We have to have the Quran to tell us that. What the Quran is telling us is to wage warfare to bring the whole world under the rule of Islam. And that's a different kind of warfare.
So we went through this verse a few weeks ago. That it just kind of gives the impression that there are people who doesn't want to go to war, who doesn't want to murder, but Allah is simply saying, actually, you don't know. Yeah, I know you don't want to murder, but I want you to murder, so go for it.
Exactly.
They ask you about warfare in the secret months. Say, warfare journeying, it is an awesome sin, but to turn people away from the way of Allah and to disbelieve in Him and expelling His people from the secret mosque is more serious with Allah. For persecution is worse than slaughter, and they will not stop fighting against you until they have made you renegades from your religion, if they can. And whoever becomes a renegade and dies in his disbelief, they are the ones whose works have failed both in this world and the hereafter. They are rightful companions of the fire. They will remain in it.
Okay.
Indeed.
Look at that. I got to note something about how people have been lied to about Islam in the West. Do you know Karen Armstrong, Hatun?
Yeah, I know of her.
Yeah. This famous Islamic apologist, supposedly non-Muslim, wrote a couple of biographies of Muhammad, wrote a book about Islam, probably the most popular books about Islam in the English language. And she wrote a review of my biography of Muhammad years ago. And she said, I never quote the important passages in the Quran, like where it says warfare is an awesome sin. And so I didn't know what she was talking about. It didn't ring a bell to me, and I searched, and finally I found it. It's right here in 217. Warfare during it is an awesome sin. It's not saying that warfare is an awesome sin, but that's how she put it in her review. But what it really is saying is warfare during the sacred month is an awesome sin, but persecution is worse than slaughter. So if you're being persecuted, go ahead and wage war during the sacred month. So she was actively misleading people, non-Muslims in the West, about what the Quran said about warfare. And I wonder, was she being fed information and she didn't know? Or did she know and had read this and was just plainly lying? I'll never know which, but neither way is good.
I find it's very disheartening to know how academics are bought into false ideology of Islam. Very, very disturbing.
Yes.
Verse 218. Indeed, those who believe and those who emigrate and wage war for the sake of Allah, those who have hope of Allah's mercy, Allah is forgiving, merciful.
Did you say wage war? It says jihad.
Oh yeah, sorry. I don't know what I said, but yes, it says wage jihad.
I translated it jihad because it's jihad in the Arabic. And so why shouldn't it be jihad in the English? The Quran translations in English, usually when it says jihad, they say struggle or war or something like that. But I think people know what jihad means nowadays, or they've heard the word. It's very important to show where it's in the Quran. And
but
so
I'm not sure if I can say people knows what jihad is, because last year Met expressed, that's the Metropolitan Police in London, expressed that jihad has many meaning.
Yeah, they're very knowledgeable about all this.
They are. They ask you about the strong drink and games of chance. Say, in both is great sin, and some benefit for man, but their sin is greater than their benefit. And they ask you what they should spend. Say, what you can spare. In this way, Allah makes signs clear to you that maybe you will reflect.
Okay, wait a second. Did you see that? Strong drink and games of chance. In both is a great sin, but some benefit. Now look at 590. O you who believe, strong drink and games of chance and idols and divining arrows are only an abomination of Satan's handiwork. So 590 says strong drink and gambling is of Satan. But 219 says strong drink and gambling, there's some benefit in them. So Satan is giving benefits to mankind? How can that be?
Well, Allah changes his mind.
Yes, Allah changes his mind. That's the only explanation, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. How could it be that strong drink and gambling are of some benefit if we hear in chapter 5 that they're Satan's handiwork?
There was like someone I spoke to recently. He was forced to convert into Islam in prison. And the main reason he ended up in prison, apparently he was like selling these drugs to people stuff. And then he got into prison. And when he converted in prison, when he was out, he was like, okay, I am Muslim now. I'm changed person. What should I be doing? People in prison suggested him he should continue to sell these drugs, all those kind of things. As long as he's selling that to non-Muslims, it's okay. So I guess that's the benefit of it. So he is harming non-Muslims with these drugs, all these kind of benefits him financially so that he can contribute to jihad in different parts of the world.
That's a very common idea. The Taliban 20 some years ago said the same thing when they were asked about, why do you have poppy fields for heroin in Afghanistan? And they said, as long as it's sold to the unbelievers, it's fine.
Yeah. Upon the world and hereafter, and they ask you about orphans, say, to improve their situation is best, and if you mingle your affairs with theirs, then they are your brothers. Allah knows the one who spoils things from the one who improves things. If Allah had willed, he could have overburdened you. Allah is mighty, wise.
So here it says take care of orphans. But in chapter 33, we hear that there can be no adoption. And it all has to do with the story about Muhammad and his adopted son's wife, and the scandal of him marrying his adopted son's wife, which he gets out of by saying, well, okay, he's not my son, there's no adoption. So she's no longer his daughter-in-law, and then he can marry her. So here, there is adoption and they're orphans. And it's just a plain contradiction.
So in Muslim countries, you've got lots of institutions that are just for the orphans. Maybe
just not adoption.
Yeah, it's not adoption, it's for orphans. So I'm just trying to figure out in this context what kind of care he's talking about. Like, how does he wants to look after his orphans?
Okay, maybe I'm assuming too much and thinking that
also it's helpful to kind of remember Muhammad is the one who is making those people orphan mainly. He's killing all of he's killing their family, and then he's making them orphan. Do not marry adulteries until they believe.
Idolatresses,
Adulteries. Until they believe. For indeed, a believing slave woman is better than idolatries. Even though she pleases you. And do not give your daughters in marriage to idolatries until they believe. For indeed, believing slave is better than. No, I'm struggling with that word now.
Idolater.
Anyway, that word. Even though he pleases you. These people invite you to fire, and Allah invites you to garden, and to forgiveness by His grace, and explains His signs to mankind so that perhaps they will remember.
So all over India nowadays, you have Muslims getting married to Hindu women and forcing them to convert to Islam. And a lot of times they even pretend to be Hindus, and then after they're married, they spring it upon them that they're actually Muslims and pressure them to convert to Islam, because a Muslim man is forbidden to marry a Hindu woman because she's an idolatress. And so this verse is in play. She has to convert. A Muslim man can marry a Jewish or Christian woman because she is a person of the book and not an idolater. And so consequently, as a fellow monotheist, she can legitimately be married to a Muslim, but not a Hindu.
Love jihad is very common. And I remember listening a lecture by a Muslim. He was saying, like, we passed on the times where we can use sword. Now, through marriage, interfaith marriages, we simply convert people, convert women, and then all the kids become Muslim as well. So it's
a demographic jihad.
Yeah. 222. They ask you about menstruation. Say, it is an illness. So leave women alone at such times and do not go into them until they are cleansed. And when they have purified themselves, then go unto them as Allah has commanded you. Indeed, Allah loves those who turn to Him and loves those who are concerned about cleanness.
Well, this is just another part of the misogyny of the Quran, because we're talking about a biological process here. It's not an illness. It's the natural way that a female body works. And so to term it an illness is just yet another insult that contributes to the degradation of women in Islam.
Just for also people to be aware of the textual variations within different Qurans. Certain schools imply this differently. When can you have sex with a woman? After her period stops, or after a period stops and she has shawa. So it's different from one school to other because of the textual variations in the different Arabic Qurans. Your woman, verse 223, your women are field for you. So go to your field as you will, and send before you for your souls, and fear Allah, and know that you will meet Him. Give good news to the believers.
So here again, women are degraded compared to a field, dehumanized, not treated as equal human beings with men. And so we see the effects of this all over the Islamic world.
Am I right to assume, I read some of the Muslim scholars who simply say, like, we need to say no to this verse, and their implication is that verse gives right to man. However, and whenever he wants to have, sorry for the language, he wants to have sex with the wife. So this is implied rape within marriage. Woman has no excuse to say, I've got headache or anything.
Right, and that's Islamic law, because it's based on those hadiths where Muhammad says that there are just no exceptions, that any time a man makes this demand, the woman has to comply.
And do not by your oath make Allah an hindrance to your being to your being righteous and observing your duty to Him and making peace among mankind. Allah is here, Noah. So Allah is all hearer and all knower, but Allah didn't know, like, oh, women to have their period is like very basic biology. Therefore, He says that's illness.
Yes, he has these blind spots.
Allah will not hold you accountable for what is unintentional in your oath, but He will hold you accountable for what your hearts have earned. Allah is forgiving and merciful. Those who swear abstinence from their wives must wait 4 months then. If they change their mind, indeed, Allah is forgiving, merciful. If you decide upon divorce, Allah is here and knower. Women who are divorced will wait, keeping themselves apart for 3 courses. And it is not lawful for them that they should conceal what Allah has created in their womb if they are believers in Allah and the last day. And their husband would do better to take them back in their case if they desire a reconciliation, and they have rights similar to those who are over them in kindness, and men are degree over them. Allah is mighty wise. Divorce must be pronounced twice, and then woman must be retained in honor and or released in kindness. And it is not lawful for you that you take back anything from woman out of what you have given them, except when both parties are afraid that they may not be able to keep within the limits of Allah. And if you fear that they may not be able to keep the limits of Allah, in that case it is no sin for neither of them if the woman ransom herself. Those are the limits of Allah. Do not transgress them. For whoever transgresses Allah's limit is wrongdoer. And if he divorces her, then she's not lawful to him until she has married another husband. Then if he divorces her, it is no sin for both of them that they come together again, if they think they are able to observe the limits of Allah. These are the limits of Allah. He shows them to people who have knowledge.
This is one of the most astonishing doctrines of Islam, and very few people know about it. But when Westerners read this about divorce, they generally think of divorce in the Western sense, which involves legal proceedings and agreements and care, at least in theory, to the rights of both parties and so on. So that's not what divorce is in Islam. If there's a couple and they're married and the husband says, you are divorced, then they're divorced. There's no paperwork, there's no legal proceedings, there's no custody battle. The man gets the children, the woman is out on the street. That's all there is to it. And if he says it once and then while he's angry, and then he calms down later, say 5 o'clock, he's very angry because dinner is burned. And so he says, you're divorced. 6 o'clock, he feels bad about it. He goes out in the street and finds her and says, I take it back. So she comes home and everything's happy. Then the next night, it happens again. That's 2. The third time, and that's where you get all these rules that you were just reading. The third time, it's permanent. And then she cannot come back to him until she gets married to somebody else and he divorces her. So there are actually men in some Islamic countries who make a living by marrying divorced women who've been divorced 3 times, and sleeping with them and then divorcing them so they can go back to their husbands.
So, Britain is not Islamic country yet.
Not yet. Soon.
It's been maybe 6 or 7 years now, maybe even more than that. There was a documentary on Channel 4 or BBC, I can't remember. It was talking about halal marriage. In Birmingham, it is talking about like how women are divorced 3 times and then they have to marry with someone who sacrificially in the mosque, kind of just waiting to rescue this marriage. Mm-hmm. It's very, very disturbing. Some people are abusing it. And other thing is like people don't, there is like, I remember reading writings on it. So you don't even need to kind of verbalize your wife, I divorce you. You don't need to even verbalize talaq. You can send text message, talaq, talaq, talaq. She's divorced. Only way you take her back when another man I'm sorry for the language, Robert. Another man tasted her juice.
Mm-hmm.
Then he needs to say talak to her. Then you take her back.
Mm-hmm.
So man is the one who is not happy divorcing wife, but woman is the one who has to pay to this Mr. Muslim, to have sex with her so that she can go back to the first husband.
Mm-hmm.
That's very sickening. Like, it just, you want to punch Allah on the face. Like, the place he puts. I met in Cambridge. Girl from Cambridge. I met with a girl from Cambridge. She studied science, met with a Muslim, left Christianity, become a Muslim. She was in a mosque. This is like not stupid brain, but when she became a Muslim, she left her brain. She was in a mosque waiting for halal husband.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't see there is any problem with it. Its husband is the one who divorces you. Woman is the one who must go and sleep with someone else.
Mm-hmm. So see, here again, this is a religion that was created by men for men, and that's all there is. So everything is tilted in their direction. Everything is for their benefit. And even in this situation, the idea is to maximize the sexual use of the woman among various men. And so this is just one of the more monstrous aspects of the Quran.
I'll send you the documentary in case you haven't seen that documentary. It's very disturbing how people are abusing it. Not abusing,
I'm
how
well aware.
There is even like websites, or not website, Facebook pages of halal husband.
Mm-hmm.
It's like proper business.
Yes.
Yeah, it is labeled as halal marriage in Islamic circle. Verse 231. When you have divorced woman and they have reached their term, then retain them in kindness, or release them in kindness. Do not retain them to their harm, so that you transgress. He who does that has wronged his soul. Do not make the signs of Allah a laughing stock.
I think they already are.
Remember Allah's grace upon you, that He has revealed to you on the book and of the wisdom, which He has exhorted you. Observe your duty to Allah and know that Allah is aware of all things. How can this be the grace of Allah upon you when Allah makes you prostitute?
Exactly. That's
Serious.
excellently put.
And how can like husband takes back the wife without no problem, knowing that wife just slept with someone else? It's not like
it's the same mindset that makes the women go ahead with it themselves. That Allah commanded this, so it must be righteous.
Yeah. And when you have divorced women and reach their term, do not place difficulties in the way of their marrying their husbands, if it is agreed upon them in kindness. This is a warning for him among you who believes in Allah and the last day. That is more virtuous for you and cleaner. Allah knows you do not know. Mothers will suckle their children for 2 whole years. For these who wish to complete the sucklings. The responsibility of feeding and clothing nursing mother is in seemly manner is upon the father of the child. No one should be charged beyond his capacity. A mother should not be made to suffer because of her child, nor he to whom the child is born because of his child. And the heir is responsible in the same way. If they desire to win the child by mutual consent and consultation, it is no sin for them. And if you wish to give your children out to nurse, it is no sin for you, provided that you may pay the due from you in kindness. Observe your duty to Allah and know that Allah is the seer what you do. So it is talking about, first it talked about you can go to your wife from verse 223. You can go to your wife however and whenever you want. Woman has no saying in the matter how you have sex with her. And then it went on, here's the rules to divorce the woman. Magical 3 talaqs is more than enough. Once the 3 talaq is done, and if you want to take your wife back, give her to someone else have sex with her, and then divorces her, then you can have your wife back. And now it's talking about the nursing mother. How did we come here? It's happening.
Nursing mothers starts in 233. Doesn't have any connection to what went previous, except it's sort of loosely marriage law, because you were talking about divorcing, but then suddenly you're talking about raising children and saying that it is okay to give your children to somebody else to nurse. And it's all just, these rules are not particularly controversial, these particular ones, but it's noteworthy that you have the responsibility of feeding and clothing nursing mothers in a seemly manner is upon the father of the child. That is one of the bases for the idea that the father gets the custody of the children in a divorce. The woman doesn't have any rights at all.
Do we have the kind of, what is the age limit for child to be suckled?
2 years.
2 years?
That's in 233.
Okay. Because then we will come to kind of story where that age changes.
Yes.
Those of you who die and leave wives behind, they will wait, keeping themselves apart 4 months and 10 days. And when they reach the term, then there is no sin for you in awaiting than they may do with themselves in decency. Allah is informed of what you do. There is no sin for you in what you proclaim or hide in your minds concerning your betrothal with woman. Allah knows that you will remember them. But do not get betrothed with a woman except by saying a recognized form of words. And do not consummate the marriage until the prescribed terms is complete. Know that Allah knows what is in your minds, so beware of him. And know that Allah is forgiving and merciful. It is no sin for you if you divorce a woman, even when you have not yet touched them or established a portion for them. Provide for them in rich according to his means, and the poor according to his means, a fair provision, a duty for those who do good. If you divorce them before you have touched them, and you have established a portion for them, then half of what you established, unless they agree to forge it, or he agrees to forge it to those hands in the marriage tie. To forego is near to piety. And do not forget kindness among yourself. Allah is the seer of what you do.
There's not much to say about all this, but there's just that it's noticed that it's even more laws for divorce. We had moved on from divorce to talk about child rearing, but then we go back to divorce. And it's important to note that the laws of divorce are so easy in Islam for men that there are women who've been divorced multiple times because it's a matter of saying some words if you're angry. So the sorry, I just saw the last one. Anyway. Yeah, that's it, man. You got me.
It is good that people know Islam is very dangerous ideology. Causes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good to kind of
get too close and your hair will fall out.
Yeah.
But anyway, you have these multiple things that make divorce so easy, that you have women who've been divorced 10 times, 15 times. It's appalling, but it follows from the ease that is set out here.
I don't know if you come across, but recently there was this Muslims were discussing whether it is okay to marry a divorcee until you find virgin, and then they were discussing like how to do those kind of things. So is it Islamic that ideally you want to get married with someone who never married before?
Oh yeah, well that's in the Hadith. You know, there's a story of Muhammad. I forget who it is who gets married, and he's married to a divorcee. And Muhammad tells him, "Why didn't you marry a virgin that you could play together?"
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we stop there. We are in verse 238, and then we pick up next time because we kind of reached the hour.
Okay.
On a serious note, Robert Spencer, before I let you go, is your hair falling because you are so afraid of Islam?
See, yeah, yes. The funny thing is though that this is an example of something that Islamic apologists like to do very often, and that is they take anything they can fasten on, like you know, your hair's falling out, or you're fat, or you're short, or you're old, or whatever, and I'm going to be watching from heaven with Christ and seeing Islam get its final defeat. It's going to be a wonderful thing. But in any case, they try to take advantage of, poke at it as if it's something that Allah has done as punishment to you or something like that, without recognizing that there are millions of Muslims. You know what? There are no bald-headed Muslims. There are millions of Muslims who have lost their hair, millions of Muslims who have gone through the same illnesses that non-Muslims have. And yet, without any self-awareness, they act as if this is some unique thing that Allah has afflicted these non-Muslims with, as if no Muslims ever suffered at all.
Well, mother of the believers' hair was falling.
Oh, she must have been afraid of Islam, and she had good reason to be.
Yeah. Anyway, think about it. On a serious note, people, think about it. If Islam is causing stress to non-Muslims and making their hair fall, what Islam does to a Muslim woman? Very, very concerning. What Islam does to its household behind the doors. Very
true, actually, that if you read the Hadith, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You read the Hadiths about Aisha, and one of them says that when the Prophet wanted to marry her, she was very upset and her hair started to fall out. I mean, she was afraid because she's a little girl and he's this 50-some-year-old man. And so she's actually proof of what this guy is saying, that fear of Islam made her hair fall out. The mother of the believers.
Yeah, if the mother of the believers are suffering from the fear of Islam, of course, Robert Spencer is going to suffer from it as well. So nothing wrong with that.
What I have here is the Aisha look.
I'll take that as
my Aisha hairstyle.
How can people pray for you? Have you got anything that people need to be aware of to pray for you this coming week?
I'm sorry to say it, but we need money. We're in big trouble, and so if you can pray that we get some donations to be able to keep going, that would be much appreciated. And if we disappear, then you'll know we didn't get them. And in any case, that's the main thing right now. And thank you.
Okay, so that means, dear brothers and sisters, please pray for provision. As well as if any of you feel that Lord is calling you to support Robert Spencer and his ministry, you can go to jihadwatch.com. There is a place called Donate, as well as you can go to Patreon. Robert Spencer, I think links are supposed to be in previous videos. I'll put it in here and then just follow the links.
Thank you.
If Lord is leading you in that way. And by God's grace, we will see you next week probably. Thank you very much for joining me and helping us to laugh a little bit for Aisha's hairstyle, as well as unpacking Surah 2 for us.
It's all the rage. Everybody's getting it. You just take a razor and
Anyway, God bless you all. We will see you next time.